is a journey connecting the music with the people that inspire us. You're listening to the Sounds of Success podcast with your host, Jim Lombardo. Brought to you by the Rising Tide Foundation. Let's jump right in.
Recording with us today is Alexandrov. He's the founder and CEO of Burnout Motorsport. That's with a no S, which was my mistake. Offering the thrill of driving high-performance cars. Alex, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Nice.
So, sound check. Check one, check two.
What we're going to do is we're just going to reveal a song that we think captures your nature, your personality, and your spirit.
All right.
So you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So we're going back to 1981. The album Sailing a Sea of Cheese. The band is Primus.
Okay.
And the song is Jerry Was a Race Car Driver. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. This is what inspired me. This lyric. Jerry was a race car driver. He drove so goddamn fast. He never did win a checkered flag, but he never did come in last.
Very appropriate for where I am right now.
Okay, so Jerry was a race car driver. Does this capture you? Is this it? Is this the one?
I think it might be the one. I've been.
It is the one. I got the one.
I've seen Primus live a long time ago, man, and they impressed me just by the sheer creativity and their approach to just playing weird instruments. Aside from bass, I just remember what is the lead guy's name? Les something. Do you remember?
You're putting me on the spot.
Anyway, he had this one string bass with a weird a lever on the top that when he would pull it, it would tighten the single string on it.
Okay.
And he would bang it with a stick essentially to create this like percussive bass sound in one of the songs. Great. Just as it was a wild like showing, and I just remember that seared into my brain as a visual and auditory performance is something that really stuck out to me. So, thank you for reminding me of that.
That is great. That is great.
Come on, we've got an album to finish.
Alex, in a single sentence, how would you describe Burnout Motorsports?
Okay, great question.
And knowing you, I don't think you can do it in one sentence.
What are you trying to say? I talk too much? And I do sometimes. I tend to get a little wordy and carried away in my own, verbose descriptions because I want people to have all the information that they have available. In one sentence,
let's try to do it in one sentence.
Sure. I would say it's an ecosystem for enthusiasts, for novices, for anybody that wants to enjoy themselves and create beautiful memories to engage in something truly, truly fun.
With high performance cars, correct?
Yeah. Performance vehicles, but it's more than just that. It's, sharing a passion for something with a family member. We had a handful of folks that turned up to our events. They were, father and son teams. They were, brothers. They're people that have the shared passion for motorsport and also get to create some really interesting memories. And that's the part that is truly interesting to me.
Yeah, that's great. Absolutely perfect. 14 sentences.
Yeah.
That was
I did it in one, and then I expanded it into 14.
But I gotta tell you, I was thinking it was going to be around. I thought it was going to be 22. Yeah. So 14 is great.
You gave you that prompt to, elaborate.
Okay. So how do you describe in 14 sentences or less, how would you describe your current role?
My current role is founder and CEO. And right now that means wearing a lot of different hats, being good at many things, but not amazing at one particular thing. It is distilling the vision into something that can be communicated easily to our team members and to the folks that we are looking to reach out to. And it ranges everything from financial modeling to sales to development to, being an event host and coffee maker and all the other roles.
Coffee maker too, huh?
Sometimes, yeah, absolutely. We have good
Keurig
coffee.
or fresh
No,
brewed?
get
Okay,
out of here
I'm
with a
just
Keurig
look. I'm
K-Cup.
asking questions.
Come on.
I'm asking questions. That's all I'm doing.
What do you think I am?
Well, I have good news. I'm ready to lay down some tracks.
All right, I'm ready to rock.
All right, Jim.
Let's do it.
Let's lay down track one and get that backstory.
And I know this is going to be a little bit longer than we want because you've got an unbelievable history. Where'd you grow up? Boy, what a loaded question that is.
Oh yeah, it's a number of places. I grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia, and we lived in like in the outskirts of the city in a typical working class neighborhood. It was a 5-6 story apartment building, nothing crazy. And in the summertime, my folks had a little log cabin that was in a tiny village 6 hours outside of the city, where it's like you get taken back in time. There's no running water. You had to get water from the village well to water your garden or to take a bath and whatever else. And so for 3 months out of the year during the summertime, because my mom was a teacher, I had this interesting balance of both like city life and then village life, like the way that it was in the early 1900s, if not before that. We did have electricity, that was good, but everything else was old school. And so I grew up in this like cultural capital of Europe. My parents took me to museums and ballet and opera and theater, and very stereotypically I grew up playing chess and piano, which is a very Russian
What
thing to
age
do.
is this?
I started playing piano at 4, and I started playing chess probably around 6. And I
Wow.
started competing in tournaments, and
Okay.
it was fun. I got pretty solid at it, and I'll be competing with kids a couple of years older than me, and haven't played chess in a long time, and I still have the basic muscle for it, but not the overarching strategy. I forgot a lot of those different things. But I, grew up kind of immersed in music, and that's probably why you and I kind of connect on a deep level. But it was more like classical music, and also my parents grew up during the Beatles era, during Simon and Garfunkel, during a lot of the folk and like folk rock movements, which were in some ways replicated in Russia with folk artists, and were heavily influenced by those 60s and 70s bands. And more of the risky stuff was not really available during the Soviet times. There's quite a lot of the Iron Curtain was pretty heavy during those things, but you still people had contraband records, and I would listen to jazz and Jimi Hendrix and things like that. So I grew up with like this interesting combo of classical music and rock and roll. And then when I came to the States in '94, so I was 11 years old.
So let's back up though. How does that happen?
Sure.
How do you get to the States?
Sure. So my grandma migrated in 1980. So on my mom's side, that's the Jewish side of the family. On my dad's side, the Russian Orthodox side of the family. And in Russia, during that time specifically, you're not allowed to practice religion, whether it was Christianity or Judaism. It was stamped out over generations and generations, intentionally, methodically, violently, starting in the 1920s when the first communist movements took place. Basically, the only religion that you were allowed to practice was socialism and communism. And so when we moved to the States, I didn't have these traditions of, that were laid out for the previous 2,000 years. What was the question?
That's spectacular. That's spectacular. I could take you anywhere in the world right now.
That's right.
Okay, so the question is, I'm gonna just kind of jump because we got more in this, and I think that you can expand on that. But for the most part, when you're talking about having the experiences abroad, coming to the United States, I have to think that was a cultural shock. But how would you scale your childhood from a scale 1 to 10?
I thought it was pretty great because my parents were around. They're both very involved in my upbringing. My mom was a kindergarten teacher that switched careers from mechanical engineering. My dad was a mechanical engineer as well. And, they took us camping. They took us to a lot of different things. And growing up in the countryside was also a way for them to have me kind of, be in nature, be gardening and tending to things. And I thought it was a really lovely balance. When I came to the States, I had quite a lot of issues fitting in, being, this quirky, weird, geeky kid from Russia. And also there was a class difference. So like in the Soviet Union, you wore a uniform when you went to school. That was standard practice. So you didn't have this like class system where you could feel the difference between somebody that's better off or, not. When I went to the States in, I think it was sixth grade when I first moved here, and I went to a wealthy private school because my mom was Jewish and I got accepted into it as a scholarship in Long Island. And we were living in Far Rockaway in Queens at the time, which was a pretty rough neighborhood. You could feel a difference between, the clothes the kids wore, how they carried themselves. And there was definitely a lot of, a good old school, traditional bullying that goes into that. So that was a tough adjustment for me. And I got into a fight with almost every kid in my grade.
Wow.
I had a quirky.
How many fights did you win?
I don't know. I remember I gave a couple of bloody lips, but I also walked away with a few as well.
Yeah.
So,
I cannot see you doing that.
I know, right?
It's crazy.
Pretty mellow these days. But I learned to get along with everybody. That's the interesting thing. I also learned to have a tougher skin and not let the influences of others bother me as much, which took me a really long time to kind of internalize.
Did you know English when you came over?
So in Russia, we started learning English in second grade. But it was British English, and I knew the alphabet, I knew some basic words, but conversationally, I was still lacking that. But I took English as a second language for a couple of years, and then I switched to Spanish in high school as a third language. And that was ESL was very helpful and also the fact that my parents intentionally moved to Long Island and not, Brighton Beach or, South Brooklyn where the rest of the diaspora from Russia and other republics live. And I was one of two Russian kids in my grade. And so I got the full immersion into American culture. And once I went to public school, it was a lot easier. And then I found some of my cliques. I found fellow music enthusiasts and I started participating in a lot of different music programs, and my parents intentionally picked that high school, Hewlett High School, or the school district that had.
Well, don't jump ahead because I've got some good stuff here.
All right.
Okay. See, now I think you've answered this next question, but I want to know what is Alex as a teenager? What are you thinking about? What are you curious about?
The very first CD that I bought when I was, I think, 14 years old or something like that, once I could afford to buy a CD, was an album by Brandy. It was an R&B artist. I don't know if you remember Brandy.
Sure.
So I got pretty heavily into 90s R&B as a big influence during that time. Then into electronica. I still had the classical music background, and my parents and I would still visit, operas and ballets in the States in New York, which is also fantastic capital for that. I was a dork. I was, playing video games, hanging out with some friends, and had probably some terrible haircuts along the way.
You don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't think.
No,
it's good.
Now it's just easy.
That's a plus.
Yeah, simple maintenance. Yeah. I switched to wearing muscle tees, even though I wasn't jacked. Okay. As a fashion choice, I used to wear some Janko jeans as well, which were pretty popular at the time. Huge pant legs and stuff like that. That was more toward the skater culture, which I didn't skate, so it was cool. I had a wallet chain, I think, for a short amount of time as well.
Wow,
those were the rage those days. And somehow I made those combinations work.
I love it.
I don't know.
What about jobs?
All right.
Did you have any jobs growing up?
Hell yeah.
And I'm going to add one here.
Sure.
I'm going to make it even more interesting. What's the worst job you had?
I would say repo man.
Really?
So yeah, while I was in college, And this is the time that I'm already interning at Morgan Stanley while I'm, 18 years old. I pick up this job for like $7 an hour, paying in cash. I saw an ad in like a local, I forget what those, pamphlets were of job listings. This is way before, Craigslist and the internet age of job postings. And I think it was called like Blue Moon Detective Agency or something like that. And it was a local guy that used to be a bail bondsman that was repoing cars, and he needed an assistant. So we would drive. He would pick me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, close to where I live. We would drive.
That was
to the
there was
worst.
no red flags at that point. Getting picked up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Do you know what the red flag was? He had half of his face blown off by a shotgun. So that should have probably been a red flag for me. But I'm like, yeah, it's $7 an hour.
Hey, it happens. It happens, right?
It does, yeah. Well, thankfully, that was during his earlier career as a bail bondsman, when he would be trying to chase down fugitives and collect a bond. He was in a highway chase with some dude, and basically, as he tried to drag him out of a car, he didn't know that this person was armed, and shot him in the face.
Wow.
So he had a lot of probably not very successful reconstructive surgery. But when this guy showed up on your doorstep to pick up the keys to your car, most people, generally are like, holy shit. Like,
right.
No problem. So, and he was an incredibly racist person. So we would drive to the worst neighborhoods in New York, and we would drive up, to parts of South Bronx. This was, going back 25 years when things were much worse than they are now. And, some of those neighborhoods are still pretty tough, but then we would try to locate a car that was on the list to be collected, usually after somebody defaults on their, bank payments or lease payments and stuff like that. So we would typically have a set of keys that the bank would send us. And so my job was to basically be a support vehicle driver. So either I would drive the vehicle that we just repossessed, or I would drive this guy's, basically police issue Interceptor Crown Victoria, to drive back to his lot where, he stored the cars until they were collected by the bank or the intermediary, whatever it was. And so the worst part of the job was there is an artist called Johnny Rebel. And I do not recommend that you look into the song titles that he has, because it's some of the worst possible things you can imagine.
Okay.
And he would blast this music while driving through the hood.
Everyone who's listening to this is going to be, the minute you said it, they're all Googling this right now. This is like, he's never had this many searches ever in history.
He probably has, just not in parts of New York, my guess. So, I'm not looking to promote this. Full disclaimer, it's probably the worst sounding song titles you could ever imagine. And he would blast this music while we're driving through rough parts, and I'm just cringing. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell did I get myself into? That lasted a couple of months, and then I, found some other gigs and jobs.
All right. So did that job teach you anything, or was it just crappy?
Well, most of it was pretty chill because we were just kind of like scouting and looking for cars. So it wasn't like dirty work or anything like that. It wasn't really bad. What it taught me is kind of like the lowest possible denominator of what a dirtbag looks like in a human being that's distilled into somebody pretty terrible. So it did teach me a few things, but nothing that was like a useful skill in life or anything like that.
Okay, so then we're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about influences. So did anyone or anything have a real influence on you growing up?
A handful of things. There were some moments in time that were kind of pivotal. I did a road trip with a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, when he got handed this old Pontiac Thunderbird with T-tops. It looked like... what was that name? The name of that show?
Knight Rider?
With the robot car? Knight Rider. Thank you. So it looked like a Knight Rider car. It was pretty awesome. And so this old school, Firebird with a 5-liter V8 engine. And we drove it down to the Keys on a long trip.
Wow, from Long Island?
Pit stops. Yeah. in like a straight run.
Okay.
We arrived to Key West, and then we crashed on the beach, or my friend slept on the beach. I slept in the car. And then we wake up to, and we did, when we got there before we crashed for the night, we went for a swim in the water. It was beautiful, amazing beaches and lovely weather. And then as we wake up to the sound of somebody hammering very close to where we are. And there's a park ranger hammering a sign into the sand at the beach that we swam at previously, announcing that there's an E. coli outbreak in the waters and to avoid swimming. And the day before, we were just like frolicking in the ocean. But we were fine. No illnesses. It was all good. But that road trip we started it off with, like my friend was, he is a brilliant musician, and he's a composer, multi-instrumentalist. Like, this kid is just insanely talented. And works one of the hardest working people that I've ever met in my entire life. So he's a bit of an inspiration in that regard. And we bonded over music in a very profound way. And the first track that he played was Ramble On by Led Zeppelin, which was just like such an awesome road trip song to like kick things off at.
Right.
And he was a huge musical influence on me, into the bands that I get into the things that I followed. So in a lot of ways, he really curated the soundtrack to like that late teenager, early 20s period of my life. And even before that, because he influenced my other friend before we became close friends, in our when we were 18 or 19 years old. And that road trip was, we made a lot of really fun memories, and some silly ones. And it was just one of these things that, like, it was the first taste of like real freedom, being out on the road, not having a set agenda, and just road tripping and, making friends along the way.
Yeah, it's great.
So that was, that was pretty cool.
All right. So I know you've never done this. Okay. But have you ever lied to
absolutely.
a parent, a loved one?
Yes.
And anything big?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head that was like monumental that I got caught on or anything like that. But I grew up in a pretty overbearing household. And so I had this propensity to lie as a defense mechanism to avoid conflict. So for me, that was either setting unrealistic expectations and like predicting a future that may not happen, or defensively saying something that I just probably won't honor in order to avoid a difficult situation. And
interesting, because that was the second part of it. What made you do it? That's interesting.
I think conflict avoidance is probably a big one. I mean, my folks in general, even to this day, still speak in ways to each other that are, trying to be controlling. I don't know if it's part of kind of like growing up in a communist system where everything is micromanaged and controlled, and that kind of gets distilled over generations. And I'm very much trying to break those cycles with my kids, and avoid some of the, the stuff that I had to kind of grow out of over time that just didn't serve me well, and specifically in that regard. So being more honest with myself, being more honest with others just from the get-go, and not caring as much about what other people will think, because I think that weighed heavily on me for most of my life, even into my early 40s.
It's great context. So, Jerry, do we lay down that track okay?
Everything's fine. Track 2, Sound of Now.
Let's talk about Burnout Motorsport.
Sure.
Because that's not where your career started.
It did not start there at all. In fact, it took a pretty substantial turn off of into a strange path that I could not have possibly envisioned even a couple of years ago.
Well, go ahead. I mean, that's the lead-in. Tell us, because it is a huge pivot.
It is, yeah. I mean, I started my career in real estate development, finance, and then for the previous 12 years before Burnout, I founded and ran a construction company in New York City with a business partner. So I handle things on the business development side, relationship management, strategic planning, and my business partner would handle the construction operations. I mean, there's kind of a double entendre to the name. Spending 12 years on the construction side in New York can definitely cause burnout, and I started to feel that maybe 10 years in. It was a very difficult business to run, to be profitable in, to find, for me, to find my own kind of voice and purpose in a lot of ways. I just, like, in the last couple of years, I did the things that I finally acknowledged about myself that I'm very good at. And the more I focused on that, the happier I became and felt. And so I had a chance to exit the company in December of last year. I orchestrated that exit in a way that was the best possible outcome for it. When I think about the different decisions that I made in my career and life, a lot of it was focused on how, like, how's this going to bring me towards financial independence, right? Like, I started in finance, like, I made my parents drive up to SUNY Potsdam when I was 18 years old, which is an amazing music school up by the Canadian border in New York. And because I wanted to pursue composition and voice. That was what I loved. That's what got me through high school. I was not a great student by any means, but I got the highest grades in my all the music classes that I took. Then I switched to marketing and then finance in college because I didn't want to try to make a living out of music and kind of taint the passion that I have for it. So that was a career change early on, focused on money, right? When I went off on my own as a development consultant after working for a developer for 7 years, in the early leg of my career after I graduated, I wanted to become a consultant so that I could become a developer so that I can buy real estate so that I can have passive income so I can be financially independent. Once again, it was like a money focused career choice. And then do everything I needed to do in order to become successful at that. When I started my construction firm, I wanted to scale revenues instead of being a development consultant. I could scale revenues as a general contractor much faster in order to become a developer and have extra capital available. And once again, kind of repeat those goals of financial independence. That didn't quite materialize in the way that I had thought. And this time around, when my second son was born and this little baby is sleeping on me for 3 hours at a clip, I'm forced to stop and forced to stop working on things, forced to stop listening to a bunch of stuff. And I'm just listening to my own inner voice. And for the second chapter of my life, I realized that I wanted to do something that's much closer to my passions, that allows for a lot more creative freedom, that is much closer aligned to the things that I really enjoy and love and have fun with. And I started doing track days just about a year and a half prior, or maybe about 2 years before my son was born. Once I had my midlife moment at 40, bought a little sports car, got invited to do a track event with a fellow car enthusiast that I randomly met at a Cars and Coffee meetup. I got plugged into this beautiful community and friend group that I didn't know that I had. And so I wanted to try to replicate that experience of camaraderie and friendship and adrenaline and social interaction and learning and skill development as the next leg of my life and my business model. And that's essentially what Burnout Motorsport became and is in the process of developing into. So that was really the inspiration. It was
That's
like,
awesome.
how can I closer do the things that I love and then figure out how to support my family through those things.
Yeah, I think that's great. Having that defining moment is a pretty cool space. But I have to ask you. I mean, I think that is this, and I don't know, but is this a crowded space? I mean, how do you differentiate yourself as a new company in this space, especially when competitors are maybe following similar trends?
Sure. What's interesting about the space is that the pie is getting larger. So I don't look at it as a zero-sum game. And as a driver and as a participant, I will attend track days with other organizations because the calendar, there are events available throughout the season, depending on where you are. It can be a crowded space and it's hard to pick the club that people might want to start with or continue with. Some car clubs are organized and that have been around for 30, 40 years, like, Porsche Club, BMW Club, and their chapters and affiliates throughout the country. They have their SOPs worked out and they have their culture and procedures in place. And then there's some cowboy organizations that, don't really care about safety and sometimes make some decisions that can alienate folks in the community. And I wanted to kind of strike a balance of being a fun organization that anybody can come to an event and have a great time, including spectators and family and anybody else that shows up, and the driver itself, and then truly focus on the end user experience. And that, it's kind of taking some software and hardware development principles into the sport that I don't know if a lot of folks are doing intentionally. Maybe a handful of clubs that kind of have found that perfect chord between making it a fun event and also making it accessible to all skill levels and being interesting enough for more advanced participants. And so, the end user for us is the driver. It's the attendee that comes to the event to spectate. It's the instructor that comes to instruct the novices. It is the flag person that's operating, that works for the track facility. It's everybody that's there that has a touch point with our organization that we can make an imprint on and leave a lasting experience that they had a great time with us.
I'd love to jump in there because that to me sounds like a lot to get your arms around. So I'm curious, when you view this, what's more important to you? Resilience or adaptability?
So I feel like you can't have resilience without adaptability. Right now, it's adaptability as a main priority. And I believe that resilience will come once there's a strong community following and we become more of a known entity in this space. Right now.
So you would lean into the adaptability at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So how are you cultivating that? What's happening?
We start with asking a ton of questions and being deeply engaged at the events that we're hosting. So I make it a point to, and all of our staff and volunteers make it an objective to come up and talk to everybody that's at the event, check in to see how they're doing, seek feedback on anything that they might need. That's the reason why we offer coffee and water and snacks throughout our events, so that people can be, enjoying themselves and also be taken care of. There's like a hospitality component to it.
Right.
And being a good host, as if, if you're having friends over at your house, you don't want to have a messy house. You don't want to, feed them garbage food. You don't want to, you want things to be well taken care of so that, they leave your home having a great time with you and, making beautiful memories. And so I don't have
any snacks on the podcast.
I thought you were going to say you don't have any friends. I'm just kidding.
That's a whole nother issue.
I'll feed myself. Don't worry. I'm good.
All right. That's good.
But it's seeking feedback and then taking that feedback, documenting it in a structured way. So we do like post-event reviews internally where we fill out our own questionnaires and determine what went right and what could be improved. And then taking that information and adapting it to the next event and, tweaking our processes and checklists and everything else we need to do to run things smoother or better. So it's always improving and also trying out and experimenting with different concepts. That's another thing that makes us very adaptable compared to, 40-year-old organizations that they have their user base, they have their program in place. They don't really need to do much else except keep the flywheel going.
Let's talk a little bit about self-doubt.
Okay. How much time you got?
Can you give any examples and how are you handling that? What are you doing?
That's a great question, man. So there's a bunch of times in the last couple of months that I've had these creepy thoughts that would get into my head and I have like imposter syndrome. I'm like, am I playing out a childish fantasy of like playing with cars and having fun? Is this something that's immature? Am I gonna fail because I'm investing very heavily into this business? Basically, most of the resources that I have been able to accumulate over the last 25 years of career. Am I making a mistake? Should I be doing some consulting on the side to do some to create some cash flow for family? And so these doubts definitely creep in. What helps me manage them is noticing them. So it's almost like taking some elements from meditation practice and kind of deploying them and acknowledging what the thing is that I'm feeling. And once I note what emotion that I'm feeling, then I can kind of remove myself from it and observe it and then think about where it's coming from. So even if I acknowledge that, like, okay, this is an insecurity because I'm feeling stressed about X, Y, and Z, whether it's, something that we haven't yet proven out, or we're now testing it and it could be a failure, or something else like that. So I think honestly, like that's one of the most simple and useful tools that I found for myself. Journaling, writing about stuff is also very helpful. And I need to do a little bit more of that, and talking to my colleagues as a sounding board, and not just colleagues that are there to support me, unilaterally, no matter who they are as a friend, but people that have critical feedback, and I'm listening to it with ears wide open, but also not making it my own, because people have their own opinions and worries, and I've learned not to internalize those the way that I used to. So honestly, becoming a parent has taught me a lot in terms of like how to handle that kind of stuff.
Anything in the path that you would change? Any path you could have taken, you'd be curious about how it played out?
I would like to say yes, because that would just be easier. A lot of the decisions that I made, a lot of the people that I've surrounded myself with in my past led to a tremendous amount of worry and stress and doubt and insecurity in a lot of different ways. Now, had I not chosen that path that was extremely difficult and sometimes extraordinarily negative and really tough to swallow, I don't know if I would have been as resilient and strong and more determined and more prepared for the next chapter than I am today. But it's hard to acknowledge that, like, yeah, I wish I could have saved a lot of stress, right? Because it probably took a serious toll on my relationships, both my relationship with my wife as we were going through ups and downs of my former company, and it weighs heavy sometimes. And also I've learned to acknowledge and let those things go and accept, and also focus on the future. And that's really the motivating factor for me. That's what like gets me extremely excited, because now I'm free to do whatever the I want. And it is extremely rewarding just to, like, I feel like I haven't worked a single day in the last, however many months it's been since I founded Burnout. And that's a new thing for me. Like, I have not had that feeling forever, which is kind of like the ultimate dream, right? It's to not feel like you're working a single day in your life, but still making meaningful impact on others. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, in less than 14 sentences, no, I wouldn't change anything.
I don't think you can. That's the beautiful thing, unless you're going to be Superman and spin the world around, right?
Right.
So where do you see Burnout next 5-10 years? Where is this going?
Ooh, there's a lot of different elements that we're currently developing in parallel that feed itself in a very like virtuous loop sort of way. Aside from hosting track experiences for automotive enthusiasts and people that are into cars, we're also producing corporate events. So, somebody that wants to have a product launch, somebody that wants to do a team building exercise, or client entertainment outing, instead of going to a golf course, you can have a track day, and we could provide, the full suite of experiences that we can bake into it. And that part is fun. It's that's where the creative juices get flowing, and we just kind of figure out how to make this interesting, engaging, and awesome. We're also developing a fleet that will serve both as an arrive and drive rental option for people that don't have a track vehicle, or that don't have an enthusiast car that they are willing to take to the track. Having that fleet in place will lower the barrier to entry for folks that may not have access to a car. And you can't like get a Turo and take it to a racetrack, or at least you shouldn't. Same thing with like Hertz Rentals or any major rental companies. There have been horror stories that I've heard of, thankfully not at any of our events, where somebody would rent a Mustang from Budget or Hertz that have garbage brake pads on it, and they would take it to a track event and then end up in a lot of trouble. That would create a lot of trouble for everybody. So definitely don't recommend doing that. But we're also hosting events that are off the track to continue the social engagement and to build in networking, because we're right next to New York City, and this is the place for that. And giving people something to do when we're in between events, whether it's a Formula One watch party or like just a business networking event that we're hosting. It's one way for us to continue to connect everybody in the community and in the ecosystem that we're looking to build.
So is there one next big thing that you're kind of focused on? You think it'll take the company to the next level?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're in the process of a capital raise currently for a
Interesting.
seed
Okay.
funding round. So pre-seed, I financed everything myself. So literally like putting money into paper bags and setting them on fire and then like doing a lot of chant and dancing around it to see like what comes to it. But it's also one of these things that I'm following my gut a lot more. I'm surrounding myself with amazing people that genuinely are interested in seeing us succeed and are resonating with what we're trying to accomplish. So like I'm not getting high off of my own supply on it, but it's one of these things that I'm constantly like the feedback that I'm receiving that I'm getting from my network has been extremely supportive, and I see the path forward. It's very clear to me the priorities and where to allocate resources the most of, and in which order and at which intensity, and how to amplify the things that are working well. That's everything that's currently in progress as we're working out these different elements and how they interplay with each other. But they're all complementary, and that's it's around creating an awesome experience that is as accessible as possible.
Yeah.
So I might be driving down to Florida to pick up a shuttle van sometime in the next couple of weeks that I have my eye on, just so we can, take people from the city and bring them to a racetrack facility. Yeah. So there's a lot of different elements that are currently at play, and it feeds in my desire to buy shit and like covet cars, because I've always done that, just like, window shopping on the things that I couldn't afford. And now I have a potential outlet for that to build a fleet of awesome, fun cars that can be geared towards enthusiasts and can also be, automatic pedal shifter transmissions that anybody can hop in and drive with a valid license. So yeah, there's much bigger plans ahead. The goal of the seed round is to get to Series A in the next 2 years. And then there'll be some interesting brick and mortar concepts that will be developing as well.
Interesting. So how do you define success?
I define success now in this stage of my life as being able to provide a desired lifestyle through pursuing passions. And for me, that, my wife and I intentionally bought a small home that is modest to upkeep and maintain, and with a relatively inexpensive mortgage comparatively to, renters in the city and everywhere else. We live in a beautiful community. We have little kids, have a yard. We constantly say to each other that we love our home. We love our kitchen. We love our yard. We love to be where we are. So I think finding that the ability to provide inner peace, both when you're not working and with work. You know what work was for me this weekend? So we just hosted a track day yesterday. Work for me was picking up a friend's Corvette Corvette Z06 that he just bought. And he wanted me to drive it so that we can get past the break-in period of 500 miles. And I happened to had needed to go to South Jersey to run a track event. So my work was me road tripping with my operations associate in a insane, supercar, and then having fun at a track while also engaging with a bunch of automotive enthusiasts. Like, how awesome is that?
Well,
there's stuff to do to prepare. There's,
That leads me right to the next question.
Yeah.
Alex.
Yes, Jim.
Are you successful?
I think so. I think finally I am. I can define myself as being successful and feel comfortable with that and not feel the imposter syndrome creeping in.
Jim, this is really shaping up. Let's talk about liner notes.
Who's the closest person to you, first name only?
Luca.
If we ask Luca to describe your quirks and weird habits.
It's my 6-year-old son, so I have to think
That's
about
an interesting choice.
I know. And what's interesting about it is that he's very similar to me in personality, but much less reserved than I was as a child.
Let's table that one because I want to give you another one. All right. So when you need to hit the reset button, what's your go-to zone out activity?
Oh, sauna, 100%, hands down. Sauna and cold plunge.
Interesting.
Both of those elements, once again, it's like the Russian Chem Academy. That is one of the best ways for me to reset and to also bring to the surface the things that are underlying and bothering me at a deeper level that I'm not necessarily aware of, and also come up with creative ideas. Like I enter into this weird flow state when I'm like 10, 15 minutes into a pretty intense sauna or steam room session. And then I rush to a notepad after I come out to like write the things down before they fly off into the universe. Yeah.
Dead or alive? Who do you want to have lunch with?
Vladimir Putin. I'm just kidding. Definitely not.
We'll edit that out.
No, you shouldn't. You should not edit that out. That's a keeper. That's a good one. It's a zinger. I would love to have lunch with my grandfather before he had a traumatic brain injury in his 30s, I'd like to say. He was a long distance truck driver. And this is after, he came out of World War II or World War II as a veteran. After he met my grandmother, after they already had kids, I think, he sustained a very serious crash and a head-on collision in a big truck that he was driving. And then he was not quite the same after that. And, there's some issues that stem from TBI that are pretty standard, like violence and impulsivity and all sorts of other things. So I would love to have a conversation with him before that event.
Did you ever have that? No.
No, when I met him, so he was like, my grandma moved with her husband, with my grandpa in 1980. So it was before I was born to the United States. And I met him when I was 11 years old, once we moved to New York. And at that point in time, he was already an older man in a wheelchair with like declining health and bad habits and a loaded gun. So it was fine until he would kind of randomly go off about they've been divorced for a long time. So my grandma and my grandpa divorced a couple of years after they arrived in the States. And so, yeah, I would have just liked to have known him as pre-injury, war vet, but badass.
Yeah. Okay. Books or movies? If it's a book, which one are you giving as a gift?
Depends to whom, right? There's a book that I started reading not that long ago called Scattered Mind by Gabor Mate, which talks all about, ADD and the causes of it, the history behind it and some of the strategies with it. I found it extremely helpful. And so anybody that might show signs of ADD, I would probably give that book to, because it'll probably make them feel a little bit better about themselves, because that's just a useful tool. There's a tremendous amount of business books that I could recommend.
Give one more.
All right. Harry Potter.
That is a great business book. It's fantastic.
It's a fantastic business, but great storytelling. Good narrative structure.
Well, I'm gonna pivot then. I'm not gonna put you under too much pressure, because you didn't even know these questions were coming. So let's talk about movie.
No, I know. That's the fun
Let's talk
part.
about movie.
Okay.
Which one do you have to tell everyone you gotta see it?
I think The Matrix. Especially now, I think The Matrix is relevant as ever and still holds up extraordinarily well.
Oh, Morpheus. That's great stuff.
So idealistic.
Okay, so look,
fun.
I mean,
All right, Jim, this is gold. What do you think about a bonus track?
so we opened up this episode. I opened up this episode. I said Jerry was a race car driver. You. But now it's your turn. It's your bonus track. A song that you think represents you right now, or something that really encapsulates a great song for you.
I'm going to go back to my Led Zeppelin reference of Ramble On. I think right now that's really what it is. I feel like I'm on this really wild road trip, and I don't know exactly what lies ahead, but I see a beautiful sunrise. I see a lot of fun things along the way. I'm making some incredible friendships, and I'm riding along with some beautiful people that are there to be there for every step of the way. And so for me, having that kind of, I would actually even use the analogy of it being like a music band that is on a road trip in a van doing a country tour. and they don't know exactly which other dates they're going to add to their venue.
It's great. It's great. So, love the song. Fantastic. I'm a Zepp fan. You know that. So okay, that's great. I don't think we have to pay for any royalties with that narrative right there. So, but fun fact,
that's not on my startup budget.
That is the 7th track off the 1969 album Led Zeppelin II, an unbelievable album. It's really just a great choice and a great way to tie in one of the most unique albums ever, which is your album in itself. It's amazing how music seems to kind of say the words that we're feeling. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it adds a perfect closing and a perfect note to a great album. So big thanks to Alex Alexandrov, the CEO of Burnout Motorsport with no S. Alex, thanks for recording with us. Thank you for recording your album today.
You got it, man. This is fun.
Until the next recording, I'm Jim Lombardo. This is The Sounds of Success. Unscripted, unfiltered, truly unforgettable.